Okay, good luck, everybody. Um, I want to share with you some amazing stories, which are a way to leave Mitzrayim, a way to leave Egypt. Yom Yom, Rebbe writes that um, leaving Egypt, according to Chassidus, means to take a story and to bring it all the way inside yourself, to really internalize the story. Every time you hear a story, it's meant to, the reason why Hashem um, caused us to hear certain stories is because those stories are relevant to us. And when we take a story inside of ourselves and deeply, that's a way for us to leave Egypt, leave where we were before, and to go to where we need to get to towards Eretz Yisrael, towards Mashiach. And I want to dedicate our story tonight to the Rebbe's emissary, in Emirates, who was abducted. Hashem should free him and bring him home safely and healthily. Yitzchak Kohen Kogan ben Etel. There is fascinating account in the Rebbe's diary about a vision the previous Rebbe had one night in um, in the month of Kislev, in 12th of Kislev, in 1945. That time, the previous Rebbe had a heart attack. His health wasn't good at all, and he writes that he wrote. He told this to the Rebbe and shared this with the Rebbe. And he said that this vision he saw that night, he wanted to put it down on paper so that it shouldn't be forgotten, so that he should remember the details. But in his vision, he saw his father, the Rebbe Rashab. He saw his grandfather, the Rebbe Marash. He saw the Rav Rucher. Tzemach Tzedek had many sons, and each of his sons became a Hasidic Rebbe, except for his oldest son, Baruch Shalom, who was the great grandfather of our Rebbe. Hasidim say that the Tzemach Tzedek told him that you should not become a Rebbe, and that in 4 generations it will return. Indeed, 4 generations later, our Rebbe took on the of Chabad. So the hold on. Okay. So so the previous Rebbe was named after his grandfather, who was one of the children of Tzemach Tzedek, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Avrucha. He became the Rebbe of Avrucha. He was also in the dream. The previous Rebbe said that in this dream, his father was very happy and very relaxed, but his grandfather, the Rebbe Marash, was very serious. And the Rebbe Marash shared the following teaching. It says in this week's Torah portion, we just read today, that that Eliezer, the servant of Abraham, took 10 camels from the camels of his master, from the camels of Abraham. And so the Rebbe Marash explained that the word camel has the same Hebrew root as the word for completion of education. And so a camel therefore represents someone who has a student. And the Torah says he took camels from the camels. That means a student of a student of Avram Avinu. A student of a student of Avram Avinu. So the Torah says that Eliezer has the students of the students of Avram Avinu, and he takes the camels. Where does he go? He goes to the wellspring. The Torah is compared to water, so the wellspring of water represents the Torah. The Torah says that the wellspring was called Ein Hamayim. Ein Hamayim means a wellspring, but the word Ein also means 70, because there are 70 different methods of understanding every single part of Torah. It's called Shivim Panim Torah. 70 methods of understanding Torah stuff, of understanding any part of Torah. And then the Torah continues and says, and the daughters of the city also went there, But the Torah doesn't say that they had pitchers. Because the daughters of the city went there as well to draw water, but they didn't have pitchers. So the daughters of the city refer to the souls of the Jewish people. Souls who do not have pitchers means souls who are unable to access the inner dimension of the Torah. So then the Torah says that Rivka comes in the picture. Rivka has a pitcher, and she goes into the Einamayim, she goes into the wellspring, and she is able to draw from the wellspring out and draw water out of the wellspring, which spiritually means that she is able to connect to the inner dimension of Torah and to reveal the inner dimension of Torah. So it's precisely the deeper element, the deeper aspect of Torah, the deeper dimension of Torah, that exposes the truth of how the world itself is godly. Avram Avinu, he revealed to the world the truth how the world itself is godly. The world itself, everything, every single item in the world is constantly being created, animated, and sustained every single moment by Hashem. And Avram Avinu taught this to all those who visited his home. And the purpose of the mission of sending his servant Eliezer out on this journey was in order to continue this mission, to reveal to the world that through the inner dimension of Torah, how the world itself is godly. And therefore it says that Rivka went into, when the daughters of the city, when the souls of Israel who don't have access to the inner dimension of Torah, so she continued the effort of Avraham Avinu, Avram our father, and she brought the inner dimension of Torah, this truth, the inner dimension of Torah, to the souls of Israel who didn't have access to this. That's what the Rebbe Marash shared. And then the previous Rebbe said that his grandfather, Rabbi Yitzchak Avrucher, he shared another teaching. His teaching was based upon the first verse of the Torah. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And explained that the words heaven and the words earth refer to two different kinds of students of Torah. There are students of Torah which are heavenly. They study Torah and they feel the truth of Hashem in the Torah that they study. And there are students of Torah which are called earthy. In Hebrew, the word earth has the same root as the word for running. Eretz has the word rutz, which means to run. Some people study Torah, they're always running to try to bring out how they're so smart. They want to prove how brilliant they are. And therefore they want to make new novelay, new insights in Torah that weren't said before. So when someone tries to do this, what ends up happening is the Torah says when God created the heaven and the earth was desolate and empty. And there was darkness in the face of the deep. Meaning when someone studies Torah in that method, that way, with this interest in proving their understanding of Torah, that they're so smart, that leads to something that's desolate and empty. But then the Torah continues and says, there was a spirit of Hashem upon the face of the water. The spirit of Hashem, said that Avrucher, refers to the spirit of Mashiach, that before Mashiach comes, there'll be, in every generation, there is someone in every generation who is like the Moshe Rabbeinu and the Moses of that generation, like our Rebbe in our generation. And the Moses of the generation has the spirit of Mashiach and is able to cure the issues of those Torah scholars who are not really approaching Torah in the right way. That's what the previous Rebbe writes about his vision that night. And what's fascinating in this vision is how the inner dimension of Torah is what reveals how the world itself is godly. You'd think that the inner dimension of Torah is something which is, it's higher and holier and more distant. But it's precisely the inner dimension of Torah that reveals the truth of this world. So on that note, I want to share with you a story about a great chassid who just passed away. His name was Reb David Lesselbaum. I was privileged to hear Reb David speak several times. He lived in Israel, but he came often to visit the Rebbe in New York. And Reb David was a very unique personality. And before he passed away, somehow he knew that he was going to pass away. And a week before he passed away, he asked the editor of the Kvar Chabad magazine, Rabbi Aaron Dov Halperin, to come to his home because he wanted to share with him a few things about his life that he felt were worth sharing. Reb David was once at a Hasidic gathering, and at this gathering, there were three Hasidim: Reb Yehuda Chaim, Reb Chaim Schreiber, and Reb Zalman Sudakevich. And they were sharing at this Farbrengen how they were walking together once, and they met the Rebbe. The Rebbe was then not the Rebbe yet; he was the son-in-law of the previous Rebbe. He didn't officially accept the leadership of the Chabad movement. It was still in the time of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, and they they met the Rebbe, and the Rebbe told them that they should walk in the streets of Paris. They should go and walk in the streets of Paris. So in the neighborhood that they were in, I think it's called the ninth district in Paris. They're walking around. They don't know what they're supposed to do, why they're walking, but the Rebbe told them go walk, and they started to walk. And the streets are full with people, with stores, with people, cars, and there's walking. Sometime in the uh, when the Rebbe was in Paris, which was must have been in the 1930s, because the Rebbe came to America in 1940. But the Rebbe also visited Paris in 1947. I'm not sure. Anyway, so they're it's more likely 1947. The Rebbe visited Paris to help his mother come to America. Anyway, so they're walking, and they're just walking with faith in the words of the Rebbe. The Rebbe said to go walk, and they're just walking. As they're walking, they see a woman on the second floor of a building signal to them. She says, "I'm coming down, please. I'm coming down. Wait." She comes down, and she comes in the street, and she sees them. She says to them, "I want you to tell me where I could send my grandson so he could study before his bar mitzvah. He's almost 13 years old. I want him to have some kind of Jewish education. I want that there should be someone who says Kaddish for me." That's what she said. "I want there should be someone in the family that says Kaddish." So they directed her to go to a certain synagogue. Um, Actually, it's just to say something accurately, the Rebbe met two of the Hasidim, Rebbe Zalman Sudakevich. He saw them walking, he joined them as well. But the Rebbe spoke originally to Yehuda Chaim and Chaim Schreiber and told them to walk in the streets of Paris, and Rebbe Zalman then joined them. And then they meet together, they met this woman. And so they directed her to a nearby synagogue, and they told her, you could send your son to this synagogue, and they'll teach your son, they'll prepare that's a synagogue where they help boys prepare for bar mitzvah. She was so thankful, so appreciative. She said, "You are like angels from heaven." That's what she said. "You're angels from heaven that Hashem sent me. I was so concerned and I didn't know what to do. I see you, and now you are the answer." So Rabbi Lisselman, who is at the Farbrengen, he asks Reb Zalman to share. Maybe he knows the name of the synagogue that they directed this woman to go to. He says, "Sure, it was the Rashi synagogue. The synagogue called the Rashi Shul, the shul in Paris called the Synagogue of Rashi." And he realized that this story actually was about him. His grandmother passed away, and no one in the family remembered to say Kaddish for her, and he was the one in the family that actually said Kaddish for as she said, "I want that someone should say Kaddish for me." And he became religious after he went to this synagogue, and his bar mitzvah was a changing, a major change in his life. That's what inspired him to become religious. And of all the members of the family, he was the one who took it upon himself to say Kaddish for his grandmother as she had wanted. So he didn't know that the Rebbe himself was involved in his education. It was a walk in the street and his go, and that's when they met his grandmother and brought him to study in the Rashi Shul to prepare for him for his bar mitzvah. Now he joined various schools and the Akiva movement, but it was the Rebbe that had gotten him started in his Jewish education. And eventually, he went to a yeshiva called Kol Torah, the yeshiva of Rosh Zalman Auerbach. But he wanted to switch yeshivas at one point. He got to know certain Chabad Chassidim, and he was enchanted with the teachings of Chassidus, and he wanted to go to join the yeshiva of Chabad in Lud. So when he came to the yeshiva, um, which is a story in itself, when he wanted to join the yeshiva, he asked the Rebbe if he should join the yeshiva. And the Rebbe writes, I'm paraphrasing from the letter, you write about your desire to learn in the yeshiva in Lud. And you have two ideas of how to do this. One idea is you should go to the yeshiva immediately, or you should study in the yeshiva you're on right now, and after a half hour or a year, then you'll change to go to yeshiva in Lud. You ask my opinion, the Rebbe writes, what you should do. So the Rebbe said it's known about the study of Torah that in other mitzvahs, it's possible that you could make up what you missed before. But for Torah study, that's not possible. Because every hour and every moment there's a mitzvah to study Torah. It's a consistent mitzvah. So if you miss out on a moment before, you can't make it up because that moment is gone. And the same applies also for the part of the Torah which is called Chassidus. And since you want to study these teachings, the teachings of Chassidus, so instead of pushing it off, on the contrary, um, you should feel bad about the time that has passed until this point that you haven't been able to study this part of the Torah, and don't push this off for many months. And therefore, if the yeshiva of Lud will allow you to come, you should go right away. And by studying the inner dimension of the Torah, the soul of the Torah, this will certainly add a life and excitement in all areas of the Torah, including studying the revealed parts of the Torah. Will add not just in quantity, will add in quality. That's what the Rebbe wrote to him. See, he got permission from the yeshiva in Lud. He came immediately to the yeshiva, and he was greeted by a young man, and he asked him, "Where do I go?" The young man says, "Oh, let me show you where your bed is." And he brings him into the yeshiva. He brings him to the dormitory. He says, "Here is your bed." And the bed is all set up with sheets and a pillow. Okay, great. And he discovered that the boy who had showed him the bed, when he walked in the yeshiva, said, "Where is the bed? My bed. Where am I supposed to go?" The boy had given him his own bed. And the boy's name actually is Rabbi Gershom Mendel Gorelik, Alav Shalom. That was the Rebbe's emissary to Milan, passed away a few years ago. So Rabbi Gershom Mendel, he gave him his own bed. And when he realized in the morning that this boy gave him his own bed, just like on the fly, like without even thinking, like, oh, here's the boy comes to you, doesn't know where to go. Here's a bed for you. That made him understand the unique quality of this yeshiva that he had entered, and how this was different than the yeshiva was in before. This was something different. It's different, a different level, different kind of, as the Rebbe said, there's something about this part of the Torah you want to learn right away. It's interesting. When Reb David Lisselbein was living in Paris, the Rebbe asked one of those three Hasidim, Reb David Yehuda Chaim, to visit the home of the Lisselbeims. And when Rabbi Yehuda visited the Rebbe later, the Rebbe asked him what's going on. Did he visit the home? And what's going on in the Lisselbeim family, the Rebbe asked. So he told the Rebbe that he went there just one time, and he put a mezuzah there, put up a mezuzah on the door, and he spoke with Rav David's mother about lighting Shabbos candles. And Rebbe said, "No." So what happened? So he said, "I haven't visited there again, but she promised that she would light Shabbos candles then and from now on." So Rebbe stood up, Rebbe stood up, and Rebbe's face was glowing, and Rebbe said, "You don't know how much pleasure there is in heaven when a Jewish woman lights candles even one time." That's what Rebbe said. And as Rebbe mentioned in reference to this week's Torah portion, how when Sarah lit the candles every week, the candles continued to burn for the whole week. And the Rebbe said the same is also for every Jewish woman, that whenever she lights the candles, there is a spiritual light that comes to the world until the next Shabbos. And the next Shabbos, there's a higher light that is enhanced in the Shabbos before. So the Rebbe told this Rabbi Yehuda Chaim, he inspired this woman to light Shabbos candles. You have no idea how much pleasure that Hashem has from a woman lighting Shabbos candles even one time. So just thinking about these people walking in the street and realizing that they're on a divine mission. It's just amazing, and how this changed the destiny of the Lisselbein family. And today, Baruch Hashem, it's his children and grandchildren um, who L'Shem Teferes, who all went in this path of Torah and Chassidus because of this walk in the street and the power of the Shabbos candles being lit at one time. Um, the This Rav Lisselbaum, whenever he came to speak, he always would share a story which I've shared before, but it bears repeating. It's an incredible story. Since Reb David asked to share his stories, so Mitzvah L'Kayim Divrei Hamei, so I'll share this story again. Unbelievable story. After Reb David got married, he and his wife lived in Kfar Chabad in Israel. In Kfar Chabad, there's a custom, although in Israel there's only one day of Simchas Torah. In Israel, there's only one day of Simchas Torah, but there's a custom to have a celebration for the second night, second Akaf, just like we in the diaspora have 2 nights of celebration of dancing with the Torah. So the tradition in Israel also to celebrate and dance the Torah after the holiday is finished already. So many people come to this from all over Israel, and so he had a relative named Yaakov Zerubbabel. Yaakov Zerubbabel's wife was from the Lisselbaum family, and was a very distant relative. Yaakov Zerubbabel had a Torah education or a traditional education when he was younger, but when he got older, he joined the Israeli left and became a journalist and a very opinionated person. He was considered one of the top activists in Poale Zion, which later morphed into Shomer HaTzair, which later turned into Mapam, a very anti-religious group. And so um, so when they would visit Kfar Chabad, they would visit the home of the Lisselbaims. And Reb David said, I would write to the Rebbe from time to time. And in one of my letters, I mentioned about our connection to this guy Yaakov Zerubbabel. So in response, the Rebbe wrote a long letter of 2 pages, and the Rebbe gave me a unique mission. The Rebbe said to him that he needs to go and visit this. I don't think I mentioned. So when they had Simchas Torah, the celebration at Simchas Torah there, so Yaakov Zerubbabel visited once, and that's how he got to know him. And a lot of people would visit. That's how he met Yaakov Zerubbabel. He came there for the dancing. So the Rebbe gave him this unique mission, and the Rebbe wrote as follows: tell him in the name of the Rebbe that the time has come for him to make an accounting and to return to Hashem. And the Rebbe also pointed out that a man of his stature returning to Hashem will have a great influence. Here's the Rebbe's writing. What the Rebbe writes, I'm going to paraphrase. You write that you meet from time to time Mr. Zerubbabel. For sure, you know that he has a lot of influence on a wide range of people. You have to use every meeting for words of inspiration. And since his activities right now are in a negative direction, and the reason he's doing this is because he got used to it, but not because he decided now and made a decision that he has to do this, but it's because he got used to it. So if you'll inspire him from time to time without stopping about the great damage he's doing, instead of using his talents to add good in the world in general, and especially to add good to the Jewish people, so if you would try again and again, in the end, your words will have an effect, because truth must be victorious. And although it may take a long time, it's understood the kind of impact this will have in such a wide range of people. So when he does make this change, and he will be very and will say the truth without any without covering it up, without as he does, as this Zerubbabel is very openly express about his opinions without any fear, if he will say that that he is returning to Hashem, this will have a major impact. Then Rebbe writes, it's certain that already for a while, this Mr. Zerubbabel has had doubts about the path he is in life right now. But he's trying to silence his doubts. And as soon as they come into his mind, he tries to push them away. It's the nature of people that they're afraid to look into their lives about the truth of the way they're living their lives. People don't like questioning the way they're living their lives because that requires a lot of courage. But because this person has such a strong influence on so many people, his perfecting himself will have such an influence on others. So certainly he won't be afraid and of making this calculation about where he's going in life and if this is correct, and think about what the impact it can have. And then there adds this line, this unbelievable, otherworldly line. Line is this: as a sign, as a miracle to your relative, that the time has come that he should question his previous lifestyle. A sign for this is the dream that he will have after you talk to him, or in proximity to your conversation with him. In other words, he'll have a dream in proximity to the time that you will speak to him, whether before or after. I'm not sure. I'm not how to translate those words. Not sure if the Rebbe means before or after, but he will have a dream, and that dream is a sign that she should actually reinvestigate what he's been doing. So Mr. Rabbi Lisselbaum said that it was very hard for him. He got this letter from the Rebbe, go challenge Mr. Zerubbabel about the path he has in life. It was very hard for him to fulfill the Rebbe's instruction, to give him this message. 3 months passed the time he got the letter from the Rebbe, and he kept on pushing off this mission. At that time, his young baby daughter got sick, and he spoke to his spiritual mentor, Shlomo Chaim Kesselman, and we told Shlomo Chaim about the difficulties he has in fulfilling the mission the Rebbe gave him. Shlomo Chaim said to him, this must be something that it must be that this is the reason that that this is happening to you. You should right away not delay this. This is something that Hashem wants you to do, and it's pertinent for your health of your family. Take care of this right away. So I called up Mr. Zerubbabel, and in our conversation, I said to him that I have a mission for him from the Rebbe, and in general, he was very cynical about anything that smelled of anything religious, but he never said anything bad about the Rebbe or Chabad, and so I thought that he may have some deep respect for the Rebbe because he never spoke against the Rebbe. And sure enough, when he heard my words, he invited me to come to his office, and in the building called the Binyan of Histadrut in the center of Tel Aviv. So apparently, the Rebbe saw my difficulty, and that's why the Rebbe wrote in the letter also, may God help, may be Hashem's will, that you will not be embarrassed, and you'll speak about all the above, with the truth, words that come from the heart, enter the heart, and it's understood, the Rebbe said, that you have my permission, that you're doing this because I have written this to you, if you think this will help. So Mr. Rabbi Lisselbaum felt that he wouldn't be able to convey exactly the Rebbe's words, and therefore he decided that to read the actual letter to Mr. Zerubbabel. Mr. Zerubbabel stood up the whole time, listened to the words of the Rebbe. When he finished, he asked that Rabbi Lisselbaum should send him a copy of the letter. At that time, copying documents wasn't as easy as it is today. So I wasn't sure, said Rabbi Lisselbaum, if I should make the effort to send him a copy. I wrote to the Rebbe about what happened. And I wrote to the Rebbe, I wasn't sure if this is actually a good idea to make it send. He asked for the copy, or should I do it? And the Rebbe answered very clearly. I was very happy to read that you actually, in the end, managed to meet, to fulfill my request, and to deliver the words to Mr. Zerubbabel. Whether or not to send a copy of the letter, um, that shouldn't come from you doing this. But if Mr. Zerubbabel will try to find out, in other words, don't reach out to him and bring the letter. Only if Mr. Zerubbabel himself asks to meet you, or writes to you, and especially asks for the letter, then do it. But don't do anything about this until that point. So I used to always come to him every year to give him shmura matzah. When I came to bring him matzah, he got angry at me and he said, I didn't get the copy of the letter yet. So I understood that this actually did matter to him. And then I sent him a copy of the letter. Mr. Zerubbabel passed away in the year 1967, but actually his grandson did become Baal Tshuva, and one of his grandsons, his granddaughters, also had a warm relationship with Chabad in Berkeley when she was there. So this this message that the Rebbe gave, as the Rebbe wrote in the letter, it may take time, and I'm not sure what the impact it had on Mr. Zerubbabel himself, but it's something that certainly affected his family for generations. As the Rebbe said, the sign you will have is will be the dream that he will have in proximity to your talk with him. It makes us, realize, as I mentioned before, this idea of the physicality of the world being godly. That in this world, you're just having a dream. You might think it has to do with your dinner, but there's something going on, and Hashem gave this guy a message through his dream, and the Rebbe somehow 2,000 miles away, more, knows about his dream, knows when he's going to have the dream, and gives him this message that he has to know that this dream is actually something he should pay attention to. It's a message from Hashem. This makes us realize, that the world isn't as hard and fast and as physical as it seems. And on that note, I'll share with you one more story. Um, there was this guy who publicized a story that happened to himself. He met this guy went to the Ohel before going to Boston to take his daughter to have a surgery in Boston. I'll just read the story the way I received it. I'm in the oil and I meet this guy whose name is Chanech. Hold on, what's his name? Chanech Gechtman. Chanech Gechtman, who is married to a Carneal from Gadara. Chanech Gechtman tells this guy that he is on the way to Boston to make an operation for his daughter, who's 2 years old, and she was born with some kind of defect in her heart, and he's going to Boston to take this 2.5-year-old to have an operation. She had an operation the year before, and now she needs to have a second operation. So that Shabbos, who does Chanich Gechtman come 770? He meets the same guy he met in the oil, his friend he saw in the oil. He sees him again in 770. He says, "Why are you here? I thought you were going to Boston for the operation. Why aren't you going to Boston? Why are you here?" So he said that when we were in the oil, my wife showed me the letter that she wrote. And in her letter she wrote, I'm asking the Rebbe for a blessing that there should be a miracle and that we should not have to have an operation at all. That's what she wrote in her letter. And he was unsure about what to write. And in the end, he decided he's just going to sign his name on his wife's letter and not to write at all. And so on Monday, this was on Sunday. On Monday, they went to Boston. They went straight into the hospital, and for 2 days, they did the last tests before the operation. And on Wednesday, the senior doctor, for whose purpose they traveled from Israel to meet, he called them. He told them, according to their last tests, the situation has gotten so much better that there's no need for an operation. They should come in 2 years later for a follow-up checkup. They're shocked and they asked him, "Is this a normal phenomenon?" He said, "No, that never happened to me. I don't have any medical explanation for this." She wrote to the Rebbe with simple faith. Again, she realized the physical reality is a godly reality, and she writes, "I'm asking for a blessing. There should not be any operation at all." There was actually Rabbi Groner over Shalom always shared the following story: how this guy came to the Rebbe once and he said, "Should I do operation A or operation B?" And the Rebbe said to him that you could have asked not to have any operation at all. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's what I wanted." And the Rebbe said that that's not how it works. Basically, if he would have come with simple faith that from this room he could be given the blessing not to have any operation, then like this woman did, she knew that she writing to the Rebbe, this is where the blessing will come. And sure enough, her simple faith brought the blessing down. I know I told you only I want to say only one more story, but you know how I like sharing stories, so I'll tell you one more story. Who's here with us tonight? Monye ben Chayil and Aberel, Chayesara, Michal David, Reb Yehuda, Reb David Cohen. I want to share with you one more story. Also connected to this week's Torah portion with the power of Shabbos candles. As I mentioned before, the Rebbe said, or the Rebbe said that lighting Shabbos candles one time of one woman has, the Rebbe said that we can't imagine the pleasure it causes in heaven. So Mrs. Branya Schaefer, she is a noted lecturer. She goes around the world and gives talks about relationships. One of her sons lives here in L.A. And so the Rebbe's secretary, Rabbi Yamin Klein, once called her to the Rebbe's office, the secretariat room, and he showed her a letter that the Rebbe had received. What does it say in the letter? In the letter, they got, together with the letter, they got also a small mezuzah case and this following letter. Dear Rabbi Schneerson, I'm not among your followers, and the truth is that I'm not part of your people. She writes that she is a Catholic, and for decades, he lived with a Jewish woman who did not know much about her Jewishness. And a few years ago, she said, he writes, we went through a midlife crisis. We were crying a lot, trying to find meaning in life. And my wife, who was Jewish, suggested that who was Christian, should join her in the Reform synagogue. We both went to the Reform synagogue. We didn't find it interesting. So I told my wife, how about you come with me to the church? She agreed. A few days before the Sunday that they were supposed to go to church, they saw an advertisement that Mrs. Branya Schaefer is going to talk about relationships to women. So my wife went. She went to the event, and after the lecture, she approached Mrs. Schaefer, and she said, I live with a Christian, and in a few days, I'm going to go to the church. So Mrs. Schaefer opened up her bag, took out a small candlestick, and said, you're a Jewish woman, and Jewish women light the candle of Shabbos on Friday night. And this guy writes to the Rebbe, my wife did this, and in a way I cannot explain, all of a sudden our issues, our midlife crisis, we're looking for meaning in life, all of a sudden this was solved. And so we got a mezuzah in our home, and every week she would light the candle, she would sit by the candles, and this gave her such meaning to her. And when she passed away, originally I thought I was going to bury her in the same place I'm going to be buried, in the Christian cemetery, but not Jewish cemetery. But I realized that this would not be the place for her, and therefore I buried her in a Jewish cemetery, the Jewish burial, and I'm not sure what to do with this mezuzah. I want to keep the candlestick as a memento of her life, but I'm not sure what to do with the mezuzah, and I'm sending the mezuzah back to you, Rabbi Schneerson. Perhaps you know a good use for this. So he sent this letter to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe secretary, Rabbi Klein, showed it to Mrs. Schaefer, so that she should realize the incredible impact of one woman lighting Shabbos candles one time, and where that goes. As we learned this week, that when Sarah passed away, the miracle stopped, and then when Rivka married Yitzchak, all of a sudden the miracle returns. All of a sudden, this 3-year-old girl lights Shabbos candles. Her grandfather Avram and her father-in-law Avram was also lighting Shabbos candles after Sarah passed away, but didn't have that miracle. This little girl, 3 years old, Rivka, when she lit Shabbos candles, again the miracle returned, and again the candles lasted from 1 week to the next. So this is the power of one woman lighting Shabbos candles, and this is a reality of the world that we live in. We live in a godly world, and when Mashiach comes very soon, take me a mamish, we'll see the godliness of the world. So the Hashem should bless us all. Let's say l'chaim that Rabbi Kogan should be redeemed, and all the hostages should be redeemed. And as the stories we shared, it should be in a miraculous way, without any stories, be gesund and freilich and come home. L'chaim. L'chaim, a good vach, Manya, a good vach, Hayesara, good vach, David, a good vach, Rav David, Rav Yehuda, a good vach.